into another edition of Horseplayers Happy Hour, brought to you by the Breeders' Cup and In the Money Media. My name is Matt Bernier. I am flying solo this week. My usual partner in crime, co-pilot, or I guess I would be the co-pilot to his pilot, PTF, Peter Thomas Fornatal. He is still over in Scotland, enjoying a little bit of time off. So I'm rolling solo this week. And if you're new to the Horseplayers Happy Hour, welcome. Happy to have you aboard. Something we do every Thursday afternoon on the Breeders' Cup social channels, in the Money Media social channels. You can also find both of these streams over on the Breeders' Cup and in the Money Media channels on YouTube. You can watch along. But we're here for a little bit of action and also a good cause. And we've got about 8 minutes left if you want to get involved in this week's contest. It's $20 to buy in. It's available over on horseplayers.com. And what are we playing for? It's the Horseplayer Happy Hour Tour. We're going to do one of these for a number of weeks right through what we call the regular season. If you finish inside the top 2 each week, you automatically qualify for the playoffs. If you finish inside the top 10 each week, you will accumulate points toward the regular season standings. And at the end of the regular season, if you have the most points, you earn yourself a $10,000 Breeders' Cup betting challenge seat. If you make the playoffs and you end up winning the playoffs, we're going to dwindle it down week by week. Eventually, we wrap up with a final table. If you win that, you get a $10,000 Breeders' Cup betting challenge seat. And not to sort of gloss over, we are also playing for entry into this Saturday's BCBC qualifier over on horseplayers.com. The top 10% of the entries in today's contest will move over to that. And you can also just buy your way into that contest on Saturday. But the big reason that we're doing this sort of thing, the genesis was during COVID, at the very beginning of lockdown, we all needed something to do to kind of keep our sanity and whatnot. So we figured this was a good way to get horse players together, have some fun, chop things up. And it morphed into a tour that we put together last year. But also, it's all going to a good cause. The juice, the VIG, is being donated to Thoroughbred Aftercare, TAA, and TRF, because we've talked about it many, many times, week in and week out. Without the horses, none of this is possible. None of this is available to us. And we need to make sure that their job, when they're done on the track, they've got a place to go that's safe, that's sound, that's healthy, and they can go and live prosperous lives after their time on the track has come to a conclusion. So that's where all of the sort of juice goes for these tournaments every week. As far as this week's contest is concerned, again, you got a few minutes left. Got about 5 minutes to post for the third race at Belmont Park. These Thursdays lately have been a little bit different simply because the twilight racing at Belmont Park has thrown a bit of a curveball at us. In the past, we've gone with multiple different tracks, and I think we'll still at least consider that going forward. But for the time being anyway, as long as we're going to have twilight racing at Belmont, it seems like many, many folks have enjoyed the idea of an all Belmont card. And based on the entries that we've had week in and week out, that seems to be the trend. We have 191 entries in today's contest so far. And again, we still have a few minutes to post for the third. It's also worth noting, if you haven't put your picks in, or if you have, and for whatever reason you aren't paying attention to the feed, we will be showing the 2 races live that we'll be on for races 3 and 4. There has already been a late scratch, the 2, Regina, trained by Linda Rice. I'm not going to fully say, but I believe I heard Richie Migliori say that she may have, let's say, tipped over in the paddock. So she was a vet scratch. She's not going to run here this afternoon. She was one of the shorter prices. So therefore, you now have a field of 6 that will be going postward. Right now, the 2-1 favorite is Cupid's Girl. We'll be trying a few different things here this afternoon. And as always, comments are welcome, especially this week, since it's just me. PTF isn't here for us to go bouncing things back off of one another. So if you have any thoughts on these races, if you have thoughts on upcoming races over the next few months, whatever it may be, as we get closer and closer to the Breeders' Cup World Championships down at Keeneland Racecourse at the beginning of November, feel free to leave them in the comments section. If you're over on YouTube, if you're on any of the social media channels, please do so as well. For the second race, I'm going to do something a little bit different, and producer Craig has helped me so much. I'll probably call in producer Craig at some point. Not just yet. We know we've got a couple other things going on, but we're going to go over some past performances. Some folks have asked me, whether it's on my podcast, which comes out at the beginning of every week for In the Money Media. Didn't happen this week. We figured it was a good week to take a little bit of a breather. I've had enough people ask how I go about marking up PPs, what I note, what kind of things there are. So I'm going to end up doing a little bit of a screen share for the next race, the fourth race, and just show you, isn't the full soup to nuts that I typically do? Not quite all in. I don't have all the trip notes laid out yet, but I do have a few markings, and I'll kind of make note of those sort of things as we get closer and closer to post time for that fourth race. But again, first things first, you got 3 minutes to post for race number 3 here at Belmont Park. Again, those of you that are new to the happy hour, thank you for coming along. We appreciate it. Again, 192 entries right now. You still have a few minutes left. And as we joked last week, I think one of my favorite things is we've heard this is a pick and pray format for those of you that, again, if you're new and it's the first time you've come through, you put all your picks in before the first race of the contest goes, and whatever happens, happens. You can't go and change selections based on odds. And again, people have different opinions on different formats and things like that. But we mentioned last week that this is the only time we will not hold it against you if you pick all twos or all sixes or all fours in this contest, because it's going to a good cause. Again, we're all about trying to make sure that we take care of the equine athlete when their job on the racetrack has come to a conclusion. So if you haven't handicapped the day at Belmont and you just want to get involved and, again, support a good cause and have a little bit of fun, who knows, crazier things have happened, pick all ones. This would be a good race to start. You got an 11-1 shot to kick things off. And again, as I've mentioned, the comments are greatly appreciated, especially in a week like this. We'll be able to throw some of them up throughout the course of the day, course of the afternoon. Here's our friend Howard Kravitz. Hey, Matt, long time no talk. Howard, I hope all is well. Have I looked at the Mother Goose on Saturday? Think Venti Valentine can rebound from the Oaks and give Juju a bit of a test. Love Penny Baker to upset the Chicago Stakes at Churchill. Howard, appreciate that. And hopefully you're enjoying all of the sort of success that your podcast has had. I believe with Paul Halloran and Pete Visco, the HHH Racing podcast. Make sure you give those guys a look. I have taken a brief look at the Mother Goose. I don't have a brilliant opinion there. And here a bit of a tease. I'm going to be talking about the Pick 6 at Belmont on Saturday on the late week show, the Players podcast, along with Spencer Luganbuehl. We're going to record that tomorrow afternoon. So my opinion for the Mother Goose, it's not brilliant. Maybe I'm kind of, tipping my hand, but I will withhold that. And you'll have to listen to the Late Week Players podcast if you want to get the opinion there. The Chicago Stakes, though, I'm certainly going to write about that for NBC Sports Edge because it is a fantastic race for this point in the season. If it's not a grade 1, it's pretty darn close to a grade 1 caliber field. I think for older fillies and mares going 7/8 on the main track, I think it's going to be a really fun race down at Churchill Downs. I'm looking forward to getting to Churchill Downs next week. We'll talk about that a little bit after this race comes and goes. Trish Smith, thoughts on Hot Rod Charlie's loss? Hot Rod Charlie is a big player as far as the Breeders' Cup Classic division is concerned this year. If I'm being honest, I was disappointed with it, but you have to factor a few things in there. This was his first start since returning from Dubai. He had been based over in the Middle East for a number of months. Really, remember, he had prepped there before the Dubai World Cup, his runner-up effort there. I don't want this to sound like it's a negative against a horse like Mind Control, but I still think even at a mile, Hot Rod Charlie is supposed to get the job done, especially when you put a full neck on your competitor, and he just couldn't quite get the job done. So certainly a little bit on the disappointed side there, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm sure Doug O'Neill and everyone involved with Hot Rod Charlie is going to be thrilled with that, saying, you know what? He ran into a good horse. We got a fast fig. It was a distance that he didn't really want. He wants to go longer. We'll be ready for, let's assume it's the Pacific Classic or whatever his next start is. So I think that'll be a very interesting sort of storyline to keep an eye on. And we'll certainly be talking about the Breeders' Cup Classic division over the next, call it 50 minutes or so, as we break before our friends Nick Luck and Brittany Urton, I believe anyway. I guess I should have double checked to make sure that I'm not speaking out of turn, but Cocktails and Conversations is back. So hopefully we get to hear from them tonight. Here we go. The first race for this afternoon's Horse Players Happy Hour is about to get going from Belmont Park, and we'll see how things shake out. Cupid's Girl was my opinion in here. I didn't need to really offer that because it's nothing too flashy. I believe 2-1 when all is said and done. Looks like Fleur Elise down on the inside is going to show a little bit of speed there at 13-1. I don't need to go through and actually call the entire race. I'm not nearly as good as Johnny I, John Embriel, or anyone else for that matter who does a job that I think is A, thankless, but B, far more difficult than it may seem, because you don't get to sit there and just read off of the form or the program. You need to know these horses like the back of your hand. So anyone who is a race caller, it's a proper tip of the cap from me. But we do have Tequila. It's an interesting way to spell it, out on the front end, looking rather comfortable on the front. But I got about a length and a half on the rest of the competition at odds of 7-2. Fleur Elise down on the inside. We've got Cupid's Girl looping up on the far outside. For me, selfishly, I'm in a couple of other contests over on Horseplayers' sister site, Horse Tourneys. I would appreciate this horse to just go right on by and finish the job, and I'll take my $10. Thank you very much. But it's still a horse race. You never know. We are far from home. It's Belmont Park. It's a long stretch. Horse on the far outside starting to make a little bit of headway. But this one may have flown the coop. Cupid's Girl looking like she is home and hosed in the third at Belmont Park at odds of 2-1. The runner-up is going to be Affalata? How's that sound? Affalata at odds of 4-1. So those of you who played the 3 to kick things off in the contest, congratulations, you have a winner. Those of you who played the 4, you're going to get I wouldn't call it a decent place price, but it's far from terrible in a contest where you have a limited sample size. You want to just be making sure that you get out there, you get some points up on the board, and you go from there. So, producer Craig, I don't want to throw you on the spot here, but let's throw up the leaderboard. I know it's not updated yet, but just to show everyone what we're looking at here, the top 19 entries are going to move on to Saturday's contest, this Saturday's contest, which is your standard Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge qualifier. It's a $179 buy-in over on horseplayers.com. You can go and buy in on your own volition. You don't need to qualify your way into that one. The top 4 non-winners, so basically 20, 21, 22, 23, you will be getting your $20 in breakage refunded to you. But as far as we're concerned, the top 10 entries or the top 10 finishers in this contest this afternoon, you will accumulate points toward the year-long Horse Player Happy Hour Tour, which again, if you end up as the high scorer at the end of the regular season from a point standing standpoint, you will win a full $10,000 Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge entry. And again, the other important aspect of that, not just the top 10 we're looking at here for this afternoon's contest, the top 2, you automatically qualify for the playoffs. And at the end of the playoffs, whoever wins that, you also win a $10,000 BCBC seat. So, and I'm not just saying it because we are friends with the Breeders' Cup and this is put on by the Breeders' Cup, but it is, in my opinion, the best contest that there is, bar none. The Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. I've been fortunate enough to play in it a number of years. I'll be playing again this year. It's really kind of the great equalizer of, I think it's difficult for folks that are new to live money formats to wrap your head around the idea of betting sums of money that many folks, let's say that's a little bit in the deep end. They don't really go that far as how much they're betting. I know it's still something I struggle with because I don't typically bet those denominations that you do bet in the BCBC. But then at the same time, the logic and the thought of the prize pool being what it is, it's an enormous, enormous opportunity for a genuine life-changing score. Not just a year maker, a life maker. If you have a few good opinions and you're willing to, just say, we're going to go for it. We're going for broke. We'll find out if it works or not. You have a great opportunity to make a score that could change your life, your family's life, whatever else it may be for many, many moons to come. So the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, far and away, to me, the best contest that there is. And you have a great opportunity. I would call this, I think it's safe to say, this is a positive EV scenario if you're playing along with the Horse Players Happy Hour week in and week out. Taking a look, we have gone official at Belmont. Cupid's Girl pays $650 to win, $320 to place. Affalata pays $430 to place. So we should have, let's see, are we updated, Craig? I want to see if we can just refresh that. Should be updated. I can read it off anyway. As producer Craig, again, he has a few different things going on right now. Mike Baychuk at the top of the leaderboard. Scratched into this one because he had Regina on top. So that's going to be something that'll throw some folks, I think, when you first take a look at this leaderboard. You're going to see a number of 2s. Remember, the 2 was a scratch in the paddock. And the beauty of sort of horse players and horse attorneys, you can put in an alternate in case something happens. Their alternate happened to be the 3 horse who ended up going on and winning. So all told, ooh, buddy, we have a number of folks that have this one. Let's see. It's going to be pretty darn close to 50 people were on the 3 horse to start things off. And then we had another, call it 19 to 20, who had the 4 horse running second and accumulating some points. So all things considered, I think it was, let's call it a pretty formful beginning to this week's Horse Players Happy Hour. Again, let's take a look at some of the folks that are chiming in. And again, of all weeks, please feel free to comment. We'll acknowledge you. Michael Bryant, hello. Good to hear from you again. Frank C. I like the 4 in the next at Belmont. Frank, hopefully you played the contest and maybe you played the horse not just to win, but maybe a little bit of place money, or maybe you played an exacta where, you like the horse on top. Maybe you wheeled up and down, connecting a little bit there. Rob Capalbo. Hi, Matt. Greetings from lovely Western Mass, my old stomping grounds, where I grew up, Western Massachusetts. No longer live in the Commonwealth. Live in a place that was formerly part of the Commonwealth, but that's another story. Rob, good to hear from you. Trish, going back to the idea of the race callers and how I'm saying it's a thankless job, and I don't know how the men and women that do it the way they do. How do the race announcers even do Royal Ascot with those huge fields? I was so confused watching it. Can't imagine trying to call it. I agree with you, Trish, when you've got fields of 30 horses. And I think the other thing, too, I guess it's like anything else. You want to familiarize yourself with the silks and whatnot. But I think the difference is in the track layout. I would imagine that makes things a little bit more difficult as well. Again, that's coming from someone who has no idea. I've never called a horse race, and nor do I have any desire to, because I know I wouldn't be any good at it. But I'm with you. I think that would be a very challenging task to try to tackle calling one of those races. DIY Rojo. Hey, Matt, I jumped in the contest after getting my YouTube notification. Great work here. Is there a chance a new show following horse players at the track may be in the works? I assume, DIY Rojo, that you are alluding to the Horse Players reality show that I was on many, many moons ago when I was a young pup. Not so young anymore. I think it would be an interesting concept if, you got some new faces in there. I certainly don't need to be on it. Some of the folks that were on the original show, I think they would be great additions if they wanted to hop back into it. But I think there are enough outlets and purely from a content standpoint, there's always an appetite for more content. And if someone went in there and, wanted to give it another go, I think there's a scenario, especially with the way that sports betting has continued to evolve in the United States and really in North America, if you want to include Canada as well. I think it would be an interesting concept if somebody wanted to give it a shot again and see, if anything were to come of it, whether it's one of the networks that's out there or YouTube. I mean, you can put so much content out, social media and places like that I think that's something that, if you have the means, or if you have just enough guys and gals that want to go around and say, hey, look, we're at a point in time now where our phones, the cameras on those bad boys are just as good as some of the big dollar cameras that people use for production. So, more power to you if you want to try to produce a little bit of something on your own. But I look, to answer the question, I think it would be interesting if they wanted to try to do a new version of that Horse Players show. We have another comment here from Trish. Are cash money tournaments or pick and praise easier, would you say, to get into the BCBC NHC? I'm not entirely clear, Trish, on what the question itself is. Are cash tournaments or pick and praise easier? They're just very different. When we talk about a cash tournament, you are genuinely betting your opinion. With a pick and pray or a $2 mythical win place, whether it's a live event or some of the other events, I had success at one of I believe it was the last NYRA $20 win place contest at Aqueduct back in 2013, 14, I guess it was. Um, it's just a very different game that you're playing where you're willing to take shots perhaps on horses that on paper may be a little bit difficult to make. You're hanging your hat on, one little element, one piece that you can say, oh, well, maybe this is why the horse is going to run well here this afternoon. And you need those kind of prices to come in to have a genuine chance to win a $2 mythical win place kind of pick and pray. Or you need to have a day where it's all chalk and you just happen to be, spotting dimes across the room. Uh, Whereas a live money contest, it's both a blessing and a curse, I think, because you don't have to play a race that you don't really love. Let me rephrase that. There are, in most live money contests, there are minimums that you need to hit. But the point is, if you don't really want to make a giant bet on a certain horse, you don't have to. You can wait for the horse or the betting opportunity that you like and go for it. But the problem is, and this is why I say it's a bit of a curse, if you're not accustomed to making large wagers, or perhaps I don't want to say you're risk averse, because I feel like all of us that are playing this game, we're up for a little bit of risk. It just forces you to get out of your comfort zone. Again, I'm guilty of it still, where, if I had to guess the largest bet I've made in any of the BCBCs I've played, back in 2014, I played I think it must have been in the Classic. I was in, I think, third or fourth going into the Classic. And I think all told, I put in somewhere about $6,000 or $7,000 into the race, which, I don't normally put $600 or $700 into a day. Never mind one individual race times 10. So it's just much more a matter of getting outside of your comfort zone, especially if you're someone who's typically a $2 win place type, or making it up a $10 win better. Not that there's anything wrong with that whatsoever. It's just, boy, a $10 win bet, the denomination goes up so high in an event like the BCBC, or I think of Belmont has their Belmont Stakes betting challenge, or Keeneland with the Grade 1 Gamble, or the Del Mar contest, which is coming up in a few weeks out there in Southern California. If you're not used to it or you've never done it before, it can definitely be a little bit on the intimidating side. It's still intimidating for me, even when I love some of the things that I'm doing in the BCBC. But it's the reality of the situation. You need to be prepared to get in there and go for it. Let's see. Let's go through a couple of the things. Let's take a look. Craig, I don't know if you can hear me. Let's see if we can throw up the leaderboard. Maybe that'll work. There it is. Again, so there's your leaderboard. I mentioned we've got 50 people that are on top right now with $9.70. Still, as PTF would say, all to play for. We still have got a number of races left in the contest. Maybe you don't have the best betting board for this next race, but I think it's at least an opportunity anyway. Oh, by the way, it's happy hour. Hopefully you've got some sort of a drink in hand, and hopefully you're not at work. But if you are, just wait till you end up leaving work. Cheers. Good luck to all of us. And also purely so I don't lose my voice over the next hour, I'm going to try something a little bit different. And this could go spectacularly poorly, or it could just be an interesting, fun little add-on to what we've been doing here. I'm going to throw this up. It works so far, so good. Again, there have been a number of you who have asked, whether it's on my pod or we've brought it up here in the past, how I go about marking up past performances or certain things that I may look for in certain races, X, Y, and Z. We've got about 15 minutes until race number 4 at Belmont. So I figured this is a good opportunity to at least show off what my past performances look like, more or less. There are occasional things that are done differently. I typically will have all my trip notes in there, but this was more an exercise of marking things up and showing you what I may be looking for certain horses. So if I can blow this up, there it is. I'm not going to do it too much because I don't want it to fully go at a snail's pace, but we're talking about Non-winners of 3 lifetime, $35,000 claimers, a mile on the Widener. What I typically do in the upper right-hand corner of my PPs, I'll draw in the Timeform US pace projector. And as you can see, they have the 9 out there on a rather soft lead because it doesn't look like there's a great deal of early speed signed on in this race. So not yet Charlie for Rudy Rodriguez and the apprentice Jose Gomez out there on the front with the 6 and 7 in just behind and a few other horses. So for all races, whether it's something I do for TV or I'm just handicapping in general, I'll go through, I'll make notation of that. Obviously, you take out the scratches, so the MTOs are the only ones that we lose in here. But then I'll go through and identify some certain things that I notice just glancing through the past performances and looking at it going, okay, Grecian Pharaoh, second start off the layoff for Rudy, tried this level last time out, showed a little bit of speed, faded at the end. 2 for 17 lifetime, 0 for 2 at Belmont, 0 for 3 at the distance, 1 for 8 on grass. And even I think I can get a little bit. Can we get super creative here? I look for things like that. Look at that little spot shadow. Oh, we're doing big things now. Whoops. So I look at something like this. Some of the better efforts from this horse. In a matter of 3 starts, you had 2 victories and a second place finish for a horse that's eligible for non-winners of 3 lifetime. So when this horse got good, it stayed good. But the bigger point is what we're looking at from a running style standpoint and the complexion of the races that this one has run well in. So the maiden score at 16 level came when this one was forwardly placed, rather tepid fractions, was able to kick clear, goes on with it. Great. Comes back, takes on winners for the first time, N2L condition, hot fractions, rallies from the back of the pack, closes with a flurry, runs well, finishes second. Same exact thing happens in the next start, fast pace, tail of the field, comes with a big finish, gets up in time, breaks through the N2L condition. The point is, this one typically, you can adapt a little bit to the pace scenario, but I think the best runs to this point in this one's career have come when the pace is on the hot side, which it doesn't expect to be here this afternoon. Probably part of the reason this horse is 7-1, but taking a few nibbles from that 12-1 morning line. Take a horse like the 1A, the Big Gray. So I'll go through. You'll note that this horse has only run on turf a couple of times. Okay. Not the end of the world, but that makes me wonder a little bit about the pedigree. Okay. Come up here. Mizzen mast, about 13% with turf routers. The dam was an allowance type, 70 to 80 buyer speed figure range, somewhere thereabouts. So there's enough quality there to make you think this one could be okay. But we are dealing with a horse that is 2 for 14 lifetime. I'm drawing a line through this most recent run simply because we hit the gate as I try to get too cute. Hit the gate at the start, draw a line through it, not the end of the world. I'm effectively looking at this as the horse's first start for the Randy Prasad barn. Now, we're talking about a 23-1 shot. I think there's enough pedigree to think that this one could be okay. But then again, is it enough to suggest that this horse is going to jump up by leaps and bounds and be competitive against this group? Debatable. There's a reason you're getting a giant price. Chess's Dream. You want to talk about getting class relief. Now, you'll note I have many more markings for this horse than I have for some of the other runners to this point. Taking a precipitous drop in class. Okay, we are now at the 35 level after running in graded stakes last year as a 3-year-old. Just tried Florida bred stakes company at Tampa in the most recent run. I think the other thing that is noteworthy, though, this horse hasn't gotten appreciably better for the better part of a year. Take a look at those buyer speed figures. Just consistently in the mid 70 range. Not to say that this one can't win or doesn't fit here, but I think you at least need to factor in you're dealing with a horse that needs the class relief. There's a reason that he hasn't been running particularly well against better because he's just not that fast. Against a group like this, I think he fits in here. Certainly one that you want to consider. Not my cup of tea at 7-2, but I can understand why folks can be drawn to this one. Girl Dad. I should just be betting this horse on, merit alone, but tried the N3L level most recently. That was the first time against this group. That preceded a lengthy layoff. George Weaver's barn, a little bit on the chilly side right now, but we know what Weaver's capable of. He's done very well with runners off this sort of layoff in the past. It's probably a little bit too small for you guys to read, so let me blow it up some. You see, you got about 21% off this sort of layoff. The turf numbers are acceptable. And again, I feel like whenever Weaver's barn takes a little bit of money, certainly want to take note of that. Horse is 5-1 right now. I think that's a fair price for a horse that, again, not exposed at this level yet. That's the most important piece for me with so many of these horses. Have you shown that you can't necessarily hang against a group like this? Or are you the kind of horse that you're a chess's dream, who on numbers, you're not even necessarily the most likely winner just purely on speed figures, but based on the class that you've been running against, you're getting a significant drop there. Maybe that's enough because you're unexposed at this level to get you over the hump. Brico goes out for Harold James Bond. Louis Size with the mount. You see, this is a horse that has done well at Belmont Park in the past. Telling you guys, learning curve. Technology. It's fun. It's fun, but when you're trying to do it for the first time, it can bite you a little bit. I like the fact that this horse in this run right here at Belmont Park, going 7/8, yes, got a hot pace to run at, but closed well, earned a career best fig of 76. That was against N2L runners. The next start moved up to the N3L level. Totally different running style at a different racetrack. You may have heard this in the past. Aqueduct can be very much a horse for course kind of turf track. Not all of them take to it. I don't want to hold it against him simply because he was much more forward than I think he may be in this spot here. And also, it preceded a very lengthy layoff. I think you clearly just want to kind of excuse that effort and approach this as Brico's first time at the N3L level. 8-1, I think, is a very fair price on a horse like this if you're interested. As I take another drink. The 8 is your 9-5 favorite right now. That is Land Biscuit for Rob Atras. Claimed by Atras from Belmont's barn in the most recent run, as you can see. So claimed from not just a good trainer, a Hall of Fame trainer. Goes into Atras's barn. First off the claim. 28%. Good numbers there. A lot of positives so far. To me, slightly concerning is the 0-for-9 lifetime record on the grass. 5 times second or third. Gives off a little bit of the nibbler impression. Doesn't mean that this one can't win here, especially when you take a look at what has gone on with this most recent run. So these are some of the notes that I typically make. You'll note that, granted, Land Biscuit was defeated by 8 lengths by Be Here. Be Here returned to win next out with an 88 Beyer speed figure. Not only that, but the 4th and 7th place finishers were both next out winners with Beyers of 80 and 74. So what does that mean in relation to this horse? Well, this horse only earned a Beyer of 72 in that race. I think there's at least reason to believe for the new barn, trying the N3L level for the second time, that you're looking at probably an effort closer to this. The 82, this one earned in a starter allowance. And if you get that, this one represents a likely winner. So if you're playing a pick, this is not necessarily one that's going to be a lucrative play, but I think this is one that purely from an ABC sort of methodology where you want to be looking at more likely outcomes than others. I think Land Biscuit makes plenty of sense in here with a Rad Ortiz Jr. taking them out. Now you'll notice that I have highlighted the 9, Not Yet Charlie. And that's because in the contest that I'm in, I have Not Yet Charlie. If I'm being honest, this is a race that I don't particularly love. I thought it was very difficult to make heads or tails of it one way or the other. But I'll at least lay out some of the rationale why. Not only the pace projector, which we've already discussed, which has this horse out on a loose lead, setting a soft pace. And we've seen in New York many, many times that soft paces can go a long way on grass. There's a little bit of turf pedigree here, despite the fact that this horse is 0-for-3 on the weeds. Okay. You take a look by Fed Biz out of an elusive quality mare. Fed Biz, 11% turf routers. I made that little notation 19% on wet turf simply because of the amount of rain that came in yesterday. It doesn't apply now because we're dealing with firm turf, so not the end of the world. But this one is a half to, let's call it Sycamore, who was 2 for 5 in turf sprints. So a little bit of turf pedigree there. And part of the reason that I'm not holding the 0 for 3 record on grass against this runner is this most recent run at Belmont Park. I noted that the race more or less came apart. The horses that finished toward the front more or less came from the back. There was one horse who was relatively prominent throughout that stuck around, but for all intents and purposes, the race kind of came apart. I'm also not going to hold against just purely based on timing. This is a 3-year-old, and take a look at some of these other races here. We have a turf try at Aqueduct back in December as a 2-year-old. We have a turf try at Saratoga as a 2-year-old. So I don't think this horse necessarily had to appreciate either of those situations. Maybe a little bit early, maybe wanted to go a little bit farther. We're going to be stretching out to a mile here this afternoon. You combine the fact that I don't know, I'm not convinced that this one can't run on turf. You're getting a price, and this one is likely to be the pace setter. I think in a race that I don't have a super strong opinion, there's at least enough to like about the 9, Not Yet Charlie, to take a shot. The most likely winner? For sure not. But I do think purely from a probability standpoint, in a race that I don't need to be in love with your 9-5 favorite right now. I acknowledge the most likely winner. I don't need him at the price. I'll take a shot with the horse that projects to be cutting out the fractions with the bug aboard at odds of 10-1. And the last horse is Sid Finch. Sid Finch, tremendous little call there as far as the name is concerned. 2 for 26 lifetime. Both wins have come at Belmont Park. You take a look, though, we're getting a little bit of relief going from the starter allowance to the N3L level. First time against N3L types. Got through the N2L condition 2 starts back. First start off the lengthy layoff. 8-1. Well, I'd say what? Not that anybody needs to be told this. David Aragona does a tremendous job with the morning line. The most reliable, accurate morning line that there is, period, bar none. Sid Finch has numbers that make him competitive. I have a hard time with horses that are 2 for 26. But to be fair, this is the first time against the N3L types. Maybe this is a group that he's going to be better than. Also, and this is a bit of a, I'm not going to contradict myself, but the idea that from a running style standpoint, going to be kind of caught wide at a mile on grass. They're going to break kind of from the bend. At least with the 9 horse that I have, I know we're going to go to the front. So, do with that what you will. Oh, and the 9 just got pounded down to 6-1. Somebody made a big bet. So, long-winded way of saying that's how I'm going about playing this race. If you enjoyed that, we can do more of that in the future, where I can screen share, show some past performances. I can do a little bit more of a deep dive. But I figured this was a good opportunity this week without PTF to go ahead and kind of throw some things out there. So let's take a look at some of the comments as we have just 1 minute left to post, it says, apparently. Studio Flast. Race number 4, Belmont Park, 9, Not Yet Charlie. I'm with you, buddy. We'll find out if it works. Let's see. Michael McGuire. Matt, can a horse player do well in tournaments who are good at one surface? I ask because my brother is pretty good at handicapping the turf, but not so much on dirt. Well, I mean, Michael, that certainly puts you a bit behind the 8 ball, just simply because unless you're playing Kentucky Downs, and it's all turf, that's all you have, you're going to have some sort of a blend. Now, the good news for a live money sort of event, if turf is your bread and butter, or dirt sprints are your bread and butter, or turf sprints are your bread and butter, or I'm making it up, 7/8 dirt sprints, whatever it may be, you can at least, you have an opportunity to potentially find a wager you'd like to make and hammer it, press your opinion. In a pick and pray or a live $2 win place, I mean, you're gonna be in a little bit of a difficult position because more often than not, you get a good blend of dirt and turf, long and short, from all of those sort of contests. So, you know, I would say at that point, probably just, I don't know, try to put a little bit more time in dirt. And my only words of advice for anyone who's brand new to the handicapping game as they're getting ready to load into the gate at Belmont, you can see up on the screen here. Um, when all else fails on dirt, and I know that some people are going to just vehemently disagree with this, when all else fails, if you don't feel like you've got any kind of a feel for it, pick the speed. Pick the speed on dirt when all else fails. Chris Couples agrees. Use the 1A on pick fours, pick fives, pick threes, whatever you're playing. The pick six is getting ready to kick off at a million to one, depending on how deep your pockets are. At least one to consider at a giant number. Let's see. Michael Domabill. Which format of pick and pray contest do you prefer? Ideal race. Personally, I enjoy the rapid fire, more tracks, more races, over the kind that focuses on one track. I personally like a little bit of variety, but I will say, I think there is something to everyone can kind of have their own preference. You know, Horse Tourneys does a very good job of individual track contests. I've played a lot recently of these contests where you buy in, typically the top three get paid. It's all Belmont today. Or I've played some earlier in the week where it's all parks. I appreciate that. And it helps too if you're someone who just focuses solely on one circuit. But at the same time, I think of like a Saturday afternoon, and there's big races going on across the globe or across the country, I should say. I appreciate, you know what? There's a big stakes race going on. I'm making it up at, let's say it's Delaware Handicap, or at Parks, Pennsylvania Derby Day. I may not typically look at certain circuits, but on a big day, I'm certainly going to give it a look. And I don't think there's anything wrong with throwing that into a contest. So personally, I'm good with either. I don't have a real strong opinion one way or the other, but you know, to each their own. Everyone's going to have their own opinion. We are off and running in the fourth at Belmont Park. Not yet, Charlie, just as I had hoped. Right to the front. Stop the race. Stop the race. Stop the race. He went back up. Horse was bet down to 6-1 for a minute. I'll be very curious to see how the apprentice can get this one. If you can get him to relax a little bit, because I appreciate going out there and opening up a little bit, but it doesn't seem like he's really coming to hand. 23-2. We're going a pretty good lick for this level. Girl Dad's in a very good position. A few lengths off the pace. Coming up the inside, you've got Chess's Dream, who is the giant class relief angle. 4-1's a very, very appetizing price on that horse, considering he hasn't seen animals of this caliber, arguably since he was an early 3-year-old. They have quickly caught up to Not Yet Charlie, the pace, 47-3 for a half. You can see on the far outside right now, Girl Dad is trying to move up and pressure things. Not Yet Charlie is not yet packing it in, but I think that's coming pretty quick. Far outside is making a very eye-catching move. That is your favorite Land Biscuit at 8-5. The Big Gray is following just in behind. That's Brico. We made I think a fair case for Brico in this spot. We'll find out if he can kick from here. Things getting a little bit tight on Girl Dad there. The 8 kicks to the front. Let's see if Brico can run this horse down. He has every opportunity if good enough. Land Biscuit digging in gamely. Brico is just kind of leveled out a little bit. Put in a good bid. Carried a bit of ground on the far turn. Not going to be enough. The chalk gets the job done. At odds of 8-5, Brico will round out your exacta at odds of 10-1, I believe. So 8-7 in the fourth at Belmont Park. The good news, if you didn't have the 8 horse, not a giant price, another favorite, another shorty that's not going to, you're not done yet. Put it that way. You will not win if the only 2 horses you pick were the winners of races 3 and 4. I promise you that much. But the bad news, running out of time. Got a finite number. We've already knocked out 2 of them. We will show you an updated leaderboard when that comes up. We still got a good 15 minutes or so left in this week's Horseplayers Happy Hour. Again, can't thank all of you enough who have played, who have registered, 194 entries. And truly, we asked about it last week. We're going to continue to ask about it because these turnouts would suggest that there may be something to it, or maybe it's just folks that people enjoy the format and kind of, having a little bit of fun on a Thursday afternoon. If you all like the one track format, and I know I was just answering that question from Michael Domavo and just giving my opinion anyway, uh, we've had good turnouts. We had close to 200 entries, I think, in all but 1 week. Um, if all of you enjoy the one track format, we will stick to it. If it happens to be New York, we'll stick to it. No problem there. If we like a little bit of variety, we have no problem going back to that again. It's just the way that these weeks have played out. We've needed to tweak it a little bit just to make sure that we had enough races to be able to make sure we put on a decent contest. So feel free, leave comments here. If you're over on Twitter, I'm on there at Bernier_Matt. Typically, I have a show out the beginning of every week, the Matt Bernier Show. You can leave a comment over there on YouTube as well if you have any sort of feedback as far as Horseplayers Happy Hour is concerned. Let's keep going through some of these comments. I really appreciate all of you chiming in this week, knowing that PTF is, those of you who are not following him on Twitter, you're missing out, because I brought up last week how much I love Scotland. He has been posting pictures at Looms Boldly on Twitter of his tour of many distilleries, and looks like he's having a fantastic time, and hopefully he's enjoying a little bit of downtime as we ramp up. I know, especially someone like him with the house up at Saratoga, we are inching closer and closer. Speaking of, quick programming notes as far as this weekend is concerned: Breeders' Cup Challenge Series, international races, win and you're in availability. A couple in South America, I believe one in Japan. Next week, the domestic series kicks off again, or I say we pick it up again anyway. The Princess Rooney for the Filly and Mare Sprinters down at Gulfstream Park, and the Stephen Foster at Churchill Downs for the Breeders' Cup Classic Division. I head down to Churchill Downs on Thursday. I'll be there as part of the NBC broadcast. Saturday, starting at 4 o'clock, we'll have the Stephen Foster. I'm sure a few other races, at least one other. I would assume it's the Fleur de Lis. Don't quote me on that. We'll see what happens. But NBC, 4 o'clock Eastern next Saturday, we will sort of go over a number of races, but the highlight will be the Stephen Foster win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Classic. And then just a few weeks later, I will be at Monmouth Park, Jersey Shore, the Haskell. Win and you're in for the Classic Division as well. We get to see some of the marquee 3-year-olds show up in that spot. It should be a fascinating summer to see how the 3-year-olds shake out, following the Belmont Stakes and a Triple Crown where you had 3 different winners, including the story of all stories and Rich Strike. But kind of tying it back in to Hot Rod Charlie and his effort in the Salvatore Mile, it's a group that right now feels very much up for grabs. You think of Country Grammar, who won the Dubai World Cup, finished second in the Saudi Cup. Sounds like he'll be coming back probably for the Pacific Classic, something like that. He certainly is among the contenders, but I'm sure many people are chomping at the bit to look at him and say, you know what, we can take a shot against him at a short price. What does he truly beat? Hot Rod Charlie, I have likened him to Xander Schauffele. For those of you that pay attention to golf, you'll understand that it's both a compliment and also a little bit of a, well, Xander Schauffele is one of the best players in the world. He played fantastic earlier this morning in the first round of the Travelers at TPC River Highlands in Cromwell, Connecticut. But Schauffele, more often than not, against the best of the best, finds a few better than him. Shows up, plays very well, doesn't always come out on top. I get those same sort of vibes from Hot Rod Charlie, and I got him again this past Saturday at Monmouth Park in that race in the Salvatore Mile. Some of the other big names, we'll find out. I believe we're supposed to see Mandaloon next Saturday. Who knows? Frankly, I don't know what to do with him at this point in his career. I think there's a scenario in which he may actually be better going shorter, but Brad Cox and company will do what they see fit. He deserves every opportunity to try to go these longer distances, the Classic Division. I mean, heck, he won a Kentucky Derby, albeit via disqualification. He is a Derby winner at 1.25 miles. Breeders' Cup Classics at 1.25 miles. We'll find out how that whole thing shakes down. But that division as a whole, adding in the 3-year-olds, who right now, in my opinion, it's about as clear as mud who is actually boss in that group. I think there is a very interesting summer ahead of us for the Classic Division. And I'm very much looking forward to getting down to Churchill Downs, Louisville, to check out the Classic Division in the Stephen Foster, and then a few weeks later down at Monmouth Park for the Classic Division in the Haskell. Let's take a look at some of these other comments that we have here. Let's see. Nick Feldman, a little bit of handicapping here. I like this. He used the 3, second time off the layoff. Second time Rudy, first time Jose, tough trip last out, third best career late pace figure in the race. I like it. And my feeling with handicapping has always been, even if I don't agree with you, I just want to hear why you like who you like. And that's all I'm looking for. I appreciate the layout, the way Nick put this handicapping argument together. Whether I agreed or not is inconsequential. That's why he landed on where he landed. And I appreciate that. Good on you, Nick. Howard chiming in. Love the tech. What program were you using software to highlight shadow parts of the past performances? So on my iPad, I use a program called, I believe it's PDF Expert. Stand by. It is. It's PDF Expert. And I then connect it to my MacBook, and producer Craig, who I don't know if he's listening, but he helped get things set up earlier on today. We did a quick dry run. There he is. I see him. I got to pull him up. There he is, producer Craig, making his appearance for the day.
And with messy bedroom and all.
No, please, no, it's blurry. We can't even tell. We can't even tell.
We got a camera over here. It's all good.
All things considered, did you think it went all right?
I think it went smooth. I liked the past performance dive in.
Okay.
I thought that really, I mean, since we worked together at DRF, like we've been trying to do something along those lines with like live handicapping, live looking at PPs, right? And yeah, I thought it was interactive. I thought it was fun.
For those who don't know, many moons ago when I worked at the Racing Forum, Craig was just a young pup.
Yeah,
just out of school, and he was pushing the buttons for us in the back, and the relationship has continued with PTF and everyone else. So he is the guru. He is the reason that we can put all these things on, and PTF and I don't have our computers blow up. So there you have it. But yeah, I thought it went well enough, right? We could try it again sometime.
I would do it again. I think it was a successful experiment, and I'm curious if Pete would be able to follow the tech as well. You're a little bit more tech savvy than PTF,
You said that was from producer Craig. That was not from me. I don't want to hear any complaints. That was not me. That was Craig saying that.
He knows well enough.
Okay, I'll let you go. Again, just wanted to bring you on. Thank you. I thought that worked very well.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, producer Craig, there you have it. Let's see. First things first, let's take a look at the leaderboard, and then we'll go through another 2-3 minutes before we wrap up. And again, I assume we have cocktails and conversations. I can actually look that up on the fly, I believe. But first things first, let's take a look at the leaderboard. Updated, shall we? We have a number of folks, 10 in fact, that had both the 3 and the 8 in the first 2 races. And those are the only races that we're going to be on. So we're going to rattle off their names. Fred Morgan, Rogelio Garcia, David Pankanier, or Pankanier, however you'd pronounce it. Howard Johnson has 2, which is another strategy for those of you that are new. You play a couple of entries, you have some similarities, you have a few differences, try to put yourself in as good a position to capitalize as possible. Daniel Edwards, Michael Cavana, Paul Cavanaugh, Guy McDill, and Becky Mulligan round out your top 10. James Millar, part of the In the Money Media crew, is in 11th with Nancy Spence, Peter Dressens, Stephen McNatton. They're all at 1760, nipping at the heels of the top 10. David Burke in 15th. Brad Anderson, big name. Those of you that aren't familiar with Brad, look him up. He's had some success in the big one, shall we say. He's at 1220, along with John Gaspard. John has 2 entries in here. John is always one who is commenting. Really always appreciate the support there. Steve Nemitz at 970, Robert Little at 970. There are far too many people at 970 to rattle them all off. There's a bunch of you. I hope it works out for you. And if it doesn't, the beautiful thing is you can always come back next week. I will be in a hotel room somewhere in Louisville, Kentucky, going over the show next week, along with PTF. Looking forward to that. But let's do a couple of final sort of questions, comments, whatever it may be, and we'll button up this week's episode or edition of Horseplayers Happy Hour. I just want to make sure Is there a way for me to find out on the fly if we have cocktails and conversations? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But again, just check out the Breeders' Cup social channels starting at 5:15. Maybe they're on this week. Maybe they're not. Let's see. Let's go back to DIY Rojo. Which 3-year-old from the Triple Crown races do you like going forward? Well, it's so hard to say. As I said, it's a very clear as mud at this point, the 3-year-olds. I think you can make positives and negatives for all of them. I'm fascinated to see what we get from Jack Christopher in the Haskell. I've always been dubious. I said it last week about how far he truly wants to go. But he has been spectacular as a 3-year-old. He was spectacular as a 2-year-old. I was just concerned about the way he ran last year as a 2-year-old. I thought he was a little bit aggressive, kind of too fast for his own good. He looks like a much more mature mental product here this year. I think he should be able to get a 1 1/8. 1 1/4 is a different story, but he looks fabulous so far. Be very, very curious to see what we get from him going forward. Early voting, another Chad Brown horse. He's done nothing wrong, really. I thought his Preakness was very good. I think he needs to do it again against arguably better company, but he should have every opportunity to do that, whether that's at Saratoga or elsewhere. I think the 3-year-old filly group is very, very strong. It's just going to be a really fun summer, I think, in so many different divisions. And I tweeted after Belmont Stakes Day a few weeks ago, there's some serious star power in U.S. horse racing this year. And knock wood, they will all be present at the Breeders' Cup at Keeneland in early November. I think it's going to be a very, very fun summer and into the fall. Let's see. Nancy Spence. Hi, Matt. Great explanation of how you look at a card. What are your thoughts regarding horses coming back after a layoff in turf routes? Nancy, thank you for the question. I guess it depends. You always need to factor in the trainer. How successful are certain trainers in certain instances? But someone laid it out to me that in many ways, routes off layoffs are a little easier on horses than sprints off layoffs. And it's kind of elementary when you think about it, but I had to have someone explain it to me because I'm a dummy. In sprints, more often than not, dirt or turf, you are breaking from the gate and you are running as fast as you can for the majority of the run. And when you think about a 6-furlong dirt sprint, a half mile into the race, 2/3 of it is over. So you've got to go pretty fast throughout that part, and the majority of it's over, but now you still have a third of the run left. In route racing, but specifically turf racing, I think, especially with the way that we've seen certain jurisdictions as far as paces are concerned, New York is probably at the top of the leaderboard in this category. Things can be very, very moderate. And I think it, in a way, just plays into the hands of some of these horses that are coming off of lengthy layoffs. Again, it's all, each individual prospect is its own case study. You need to factor in the jockey, how many of them are good at rating horses or getting them to wait and finish, how many of the trainers that are training these horses excel off of layoffs, or do they typically race their horses into shape as opposed to train them into shape? That's another major, major element that I think many people, I don't want to say overlook, but you have to at least acknowledge that certain trainers don't have them cranked up, ready to go first off the bench. Second off is when they're going to be a much tighter version, as opposed to some others who get them drilled down, ready to go off of a lengthy layoff, and they're going to fire first off the bench. Then you have other trainers that are just good, period, no matter what. So horses coming off of lengthy layoffs and turf routes, maybe this wasn't the clearest answer, but all things considered, I'm not terribly worried about it, depending on the conditioner. I think that's the caveat that needs to be thrown out there. Nancy, thank you for the comment and the question. Again, Rob Capalbo heading down to Cromwell on Saturday for round 3. Be sure you hydrate, and not just with your favorite beverages, lots of water, because I think it's supposed to get real, real warm in the Northeast. I'm fortunate. I live about 4 minutes from the ocean, so we never really get that hot here. But I know a little bit further inland, it's going to be baking, which I'm hopeful bodes well for my guy, Webb Simpson. Played him 65-1, first round leader, 65-1 overall winner. He threatened first round lead, couldn't quite get there. Hopefully, though, as the weekend goes on, it's It's going to be dry, be very hot. I think it'll bake things out. It'll take away the advantage of the bombers, and it hopefully plays into the hands or the hooves if you were a horse. He's not, but you get my point. Of someone like Webb Simpson has much more precision than brute force strength. And we'll wrap up with this. Howard Kravitz, take care, Matt. Is the baby a horizontal or vertical player? Little Letty has not dabbled in the horses yet, but I will say she was all in last week watching Nick's coverage of Royal Ascot first thing in the morning. She's like any other baby. They like colors. They like bright things. She was locked into that when I was bleary-eyed, needing coffee and just, chalices at that point. That's going to do it for this week's edition of Horseplayers Happy Hour. Thank you to all of you who played and entered the contest. Good luck for the rest of the way. PTF will send out some updates at some point. We will have a leaderboard for the point standing as we go on. It's just at this point right now, it's still a little bit early on. But bigger picture, we just want to continue to get the word out. Come and play, have a beverage or two, shoot the breeze with us in the comment section on Thursday afternoon. 4 to 5 Eastern is when we're going to be on each and every week. And again, you're helping a good cause. The juice, the VIG, the takeout goes to TAA and TRF, thoroughbred aftercare. We got to make sure we take care of the horses when their job on the racetrack has come to a conclusion. Hey, look, and if you can also win a Breeders' Cup betting challenge seat in the process, what's wrong with that? It's the best of both worlds. I'm not going to do this as eloquently as PTF typically does, but some thank yous to our partners at the Breeders' Cup, Justin McDonald, Haley Amos, our friends over at Horseplayers, our friends at all the sort of aftercare places, too many to name in here. Thank you to Craig, producer Craig, for helping out. PTF, as always, everyone in the money media goes a long way to, make sure that we try to put this thing on each and every week, and hopefully it's entertaining enough for all of you that come along for the ride. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. We will be back next Thursday. I'll be back on Monday with my podcast, but we will be back next Thursday with another edition of Horseplayers Happy Hour. If this is your first time through, be sure to come on back. If you're a returning guest or a returning visitor, make sure you keep coming and just spread the word. We want as many people involved as possible. I won't end it with the way he typically does. I'll end it with my sign off. Best of luck, however you play, whatever you play, and wherever you play.